Good day, gentlemen. James Marshall here. Now, in the last episode of this series, I was looking at how the modern dating landscape has changed, looking at things such as the rise of the dreaded apps, systemic male isolation, changes in the way that partners are now meeting each other, different from back in my day, and the ever-increasing sexual wealth gap. And it was all pretty doom and gloom, and if you just stop there, you might be a bit sad. But luckily today, in part 2, I'm going into the solutions. How does a man navigate, evolve, adapt, and thrive so that he becomes one of the men that can take advantage of the pros of the modern dating landscape and is not one of those unfortunate men who are left behind? Let's get into it. Your solutions boil down to two primary options. One is to accept that the game is rigged, you can't win, and to give up. And the other is to figure out how to play the current modern game. It's certainly an option to bow out of the dating world and to accept that, and plenty of men are doing that. Incels, MGTOW, guys who are just deferring their relationships and their sex life to some point in the future when hopefully they have made it enough that they are prospects again. But this isn't really a solution. This is not something that's like a hobby that you could do or not do. Whether if most people like, I can't do skiing because it's too expensive and I don't live near a mountain and I can live without that and find something else to do. Sure, there are plenty of things where you can choose to do or not do them and they're not going to necessarily affect the broader quality of your life. But when it comes down to sex, dating, relationships, these are more or less non-negotiables for most people. Most men and women are not going to be having a satisfying life overall if they can't have an intimate, romantic, or sexual partner in their life. We are humans after all. We have these inbuilt biological, emotional, physiological needs for closeness with people. There are all sorts of things that we can fix and learn and do on our own. We can become fitter, we can become smarter, we can study all sorts of different things. But we can't get better at being intimate and having sex and having a loving relationship just on our own. Another strategy or fallacy that is promoted to men these days is don't worry about dating a woman at all in your 20s or 30s. Just get muscles and money and status, build yourself up to a position where you are finally, by certain arbitrary metrics, acceptable in the dating world, and then somehow the women will appear, which can lead a man to essentially waste aspects of his prime virile youth through his teens, 20s and 30s when he should be out there trying to make it happen, trying to hustle some girls into his life, get in relationships to have along the way, whilst, sure, building his net worth and his muscles and his status along the way, and then, okay, maybe there might be some bigger payoff further down the track. But to defer all of that through most of your active and young single life means that you are going to be missing out on a lot of the fun, intimacy and sex and adventure that you could be having. So instead, I'd be recommending that you look at the realities of the dating world in front of you, acknowledge and understand where there are difficulties and challenges, and then see how do we work around this. Because at the end of the day, humans are still humans, they still want sex, they still want to hook up, girls are still interested in boys, and boys are interested in girls. That hasn't changed and will never change. So we just need to work out, okay, how do we work within the cracks? How do we game the system? How do we find those girls that are not being coveted by small groups of players or who are totally outside of our echelon or our scene, and how do we access them? First, I would ask you to do an honest appraisal and autopsy of what is your current access to women in your social scenes. From those ways that people meet people, online, deal with that in a moment, friends, social circle, going out, networks, church, workplace, etc., you look at that and you write down, okay, do I have access to women through these areas? And then you'll see, okay, my workplace, I work from home, so no. Or I work with primarily men and the 3 girls that are at the office, not so good. Cool, all right, my work is not going to be the aspect, so that cuts out that 10% option. What's my social world look like? Okay, so I have 3 primary friends and we mostly interact with each other online playing video games. Or we go out and do CrossFit together and there's no girls within this social group and we don't meet any. Okay, my friendship group is not going to possibly yield me any women, so that piece of it is out as well, right? And so then you can move through and you can do an honest appraisal. And I'm giving a worst case scenario. Of course, there'll be all sorts of things in between. You might have a guy who, yes, has a social circle with mixed gender, goes out from time to time to various social events. There are possibilities of interfacing with women, but they're not being delivered to me. So I'm going to need to figure out a bridge between okay, I have a social circle that is, cool enough or fun enough that women want to be involved in, and we are out in the broader social environment and there are access to women. We all go out to this trivia night, or we go out to this club, or we go to these events, or we go to these markets, or whatever it is. There are single females around, but there is this gap where I need to be able to cross the bridge and actually go and make contact with them. Or you might be, one of the lucky or tactically intelligent guys that has a really awesome social world where you're having big parties and events and you're involved in lots of social scenes where there's lots of people coming in and out of it. And just by the nature of you turning up and being sociable, eventually you're going to bump into someone, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that works. Right? So that's the kind of old school way that people who are generally socialized manage to get their partners, and that still exists and probably always will. But I'm generally working with guys who fit more within these realms where, because of the nature of their work, because of their geographical location, if they're in a place where there's not a lot of single females, because of the social worlds that are primarily male or male interest focused, right? Because of all of these reasons, and because they haven't learnt the absolutely non-negotiable skills of being able to roll up to strangers in some capacity, in some environment, and make a connection with them, then they can become very easily invisible and indefinitely or permanently invisible. And you'll know if you fit within this bracket because you'll be one of the guys that hasn't been laid in a year, who hasn't had a girlfriend for years, who doesn't get to go on dates, or very occasionally gets a not great option off an app, or somehow manages to swing something, but spending the majority of your time alone or in frustrating interactions with people that go nowhere, that you're wasting all sorts of time trying to date on the internet, or you're finding that you're giving up and spending large periods of time in distraction and stimulation, then you need to understand that if you take no action, then you will stay within that bracket, more or less. Okay, you might get lucky, something might change externally and deliver a woman into your life. It can happen, but it doesn't give you any agency or control over it, and very likely, if you're in one of these pools where the women just don't inhabit, then you can stay in that space indefinitely and be someone that is permanently single. Coming up very soon, on the 13th of July, I'm going to be launching my incredible program, the 5 Principles of Natural Seduction Brotherhood. This is a 6-month mentorship program where you get to spend a whole lot of time with me as I help you navigate through the modern dating landscape, providing you with the practical solutions that are going to mean that you get the dates and the relationships that you actually want. This is done in a format where I'll be providing you with my magnum opus, the 5 Principles of Natural Seduction, which is my full theoretical and practical Bible when it comes to picking up ladies, as well as, and most importantly, lots of interactive features. So every single month you'll get on webinars with me where you'll be allocated different missions, kept accountable, can ask me any questions about dates or texts or things that are happening in your dating life in real time. Plus you'll be able to send me in-field recordings. So this is remote in-field coaching, which is the very next best thing to having me there following you through the streets. And arguably one of the most valuable aspects of coming and training with me is that I will be able to listen in on your approaches and give you feedback. So send me in the MP3s, I analyze them, give you razor sharp feedback and send them back to you to make sure that your approaches are not leading to you basically doing the same mistakes over and over again. Plus a massive range of bonuses and other interactive tools. So stay tuned for this launch coming up on the 13th of July. And I'm also going to be running a free webinar on the 11th of July where I'll be giving an introductory lecture on the 5 principles and also opening it up to any questions that you might want to ask me about anything, mostly sex and girls. That's what I'm known for. So sign up for that, link below. Stay tuned for the launch, and now back to the video. So the solution that I've been promoting and teaching guys for many years and adjusting and changing over the years as the zeitgeist and the environments have changed, but I'm still using strategies that I've been using more or less from the beginning. The difference being is the amount of effort that you should or shouldn't be putting into these different ways that you can meet women. I think you should have a tactical and strategic spread of your investment, understanding that we all have limited time. You're studying, you have a job, you have other obligations that you need to fulfill. You only have a certain amount of time that you can invest in socializing and dating. And you want to be thinking about, especially if you're in that period of whatever, 18 through to 40, those years which you can't get back, and those are your ultimate dating years, really. Often it takes some years for men to hit their stride. If you work on this consistently, little and often, then your peak years may well be in your late 20s or 30s. That may be when you have the most sexual market value, where you have the most access to amazing women. But there's no reason that you can't access awesome women at any stage along the path. I've been consistently dating attractive women since I was 16. The strategies that I used and the way that I operated and my type of personality and character has changed over time. And as I've become more established, more experienced, more wealthy, have more control over my time, my location, my finances and so on, sure, I've been able to use leverage and work the angles better. But I'm certainly glad that I didn't wait until my mid-30s before I started, because then I've got a whole lot of catching up to do. I need to work on my overall social skills, and I could have done that in my early 20s. There was nothing stopping me. There's no barrier to entry, actually, except your own fears and your own ego, for going out there and meeting women cold or approaching them in everyday situations. It's free. It doesn't require you to be rich or stylish or to have amazing status and connections. It requires you to have balls and to go and develop skills. So as a guy who's trying to work out this intelligent spread of investment of his time and effort and resources, I'd be looking at it roughly like this. I'm not going to be an absolute purist about this and say that you should never use online apps. Do people meet? Yes. Can you get laid? Yes. Could you find an amazing girlfriend? Yeah, it happens. It happens every day to somebody. But the numbers are generally against you. So the way I would be looking at this is just a small supplement to what is much more effective strategies for getting women into your life. So yeah, set up your profile, do it properly, and there's plenty of information out there on the internet about what is attractive and not attractive in a dating profile. Don't put a photo of you with a drugged out tiger or holding 2 fish or going like this or looking awkward or being at a work, having 5 photos of you at a work event with a bunch of dudes going like this with bad lighting and bad fashion and so on. Okay, do it properly. Good headshot, good action shot, puppy shot. Repeat those. So it's like, here's well taken photos of me looking the best that I can, dressed as well as I can. Here's me in action doing something, showing that I have a life and some friends and that I'm active. And here's me with a puppy or with something that I love. And we'll cycle through those and put up, your dozen photos and do the same for your social media so that you have an online impression, right? Because this is essentially all I would be thinking about social media in terms of your dating. What is the point of it? It's just a little snapshot resume of your dick, of the type of guy that you are, so that when a woman inevitably wants to vet you, because that's what people do these days, they can look and go, cool, not a loser, not a creepy weirdo, doesn't only have one shot of him and his mum, has all the basics in place, doesn't matter about how many hundreds of followers you have, really doesn't matter. It just matters that she can look at it and go, okay, cool, doesn't look like a psycho, looks like someone that's dateable, and then that can work. All right, so I have my base level of digital imprint. If I'm going to use the dating apps, then I'm disciplined about it. And I know that it's a casino. It doesn't yield great results. I'm not going to be trying to get rich out of a casino. I might just do that as a recreation from time to time if that's what I'm into. So what do? You spend 10 minutes twice a week, right? Where you sit down, you go, cool, swipe, swipe, swipe. Do I get any matches? Chat, see if we can figure that out. Cool, and then leave it. Because if it's the thing that you're doing every day, that you're spending many hours a week on, you are fooling yourself, giving yourself the impression that you're making progress when likely you're making little to none. And you're certainly not making any progress in developing the core non-negotiable skills that make you a seductive man, because those are developed in action. You become confident with women by spending proper face time with them. You learn how to escalate and have good conversations by having conversations that were bad and figuring out what was better and escalating and taking the feedback and learning and becoming at ease and relaxed in those scenarios, so that when you get on dates, you're like, cool, I got this. I know how dates go. I don't know, I can't predict exactly what we're going to say to each other, but I know how to have a good vibe. I know how to get into a conversation that's personal and fun, and I know how to then pull the trigger and lead this, or at least make an attempt to lead this to a private location so we can get it on, so we can really start dating. None of that is developed by sitting on the toilet and swiping on a dating app. So keep it to a bare minimum and just understand that it's It's a basic supplement to what should be the broad use of your time and energy. The next level is looking at your broader social world, right? So throughout time, used to be most of the time, and now it's still a lot of the time, couples are going to meet through friends of friends, through their basic extended social network. And it's completely understandable why they would do that, because there is some kind of vetting process. Because if you are part of this group, it means that you must be cool, or it means that you must be not dangerous, or that you're interesting, that you're trusted. And possibly a woman gets to have multiple impressions seeing you in social environments, starting out as acquaintances or friends possibly, although most of the time that leads you permanently into the friend zone. But certainly being in a social world where women have access to you multiple times, and preferably seeing you in action in some way, right? So that's why being in a dance class with mixed genders is really good, or doing something outdoorsy or something physical, something where you're working on a project together, where the woman gets to see you in action, see you interplay with other men and women, see how your character works, see how you operate under stress, see whether you're a good leader, whether you're an entertainer, whether you're somebody who is chill and easy to be around, right? So for all these reasons and many others, this is obviously an understandable way that women are going to choose their partners. This can be a longer term goal and longer term process. It won't necessarily yield women into your life immediately, but it requires not that much effort over a longer period of time to establish a social world that is good enough, right? That is attractive enough that any woman, except for, let's say, girls who are used to being flown around on private jets and living that kind of luxury VIP lifestyle, of which there is a certain echelon of girls. It's very small. Most of us don't have access to it, and you can just kind of forget about it. All those hot Instagram girls standing outside that hotel in Dubai, somebody else has paid for those. But there are massive swathes of women out there who have all the great qualities that you are looking for, and they require a base level of a social world to exist within. They don't need glamour and luxury, but they want to be with a guy that's not a social liability, one that is a social asset. And that means having a bunch of friends that are easy to hang out with, probably having some female friends, being involved in some kind of activities which are fun and interesting to do. That can be simple stuff, from rock climbing to going on picnics to having dinners to movie nights to whatever it is. All kind of basic stuff that humans do and are fairly cheap and easy to organise, but require you to be involved in groups that are fun to be around. So this is something that, if we're looking at, okay, the broad scopes to stats out there, that still a lot of partners are going to meet through their extended social networks and or activities that or work and activities that they're doing. Cool, we want to be involved in some of those so that we potentially have access. By extension, we need to be able to operate as effectively within those social groups as we can, because yes, you could be part of a cool social group but be the guy that never gets any action. Some of the things that you need to take into account is understanding the zeitgeist and the style of the time. Does your physical style, your fashion, work? Does it show that you get it, as in you get what it is to be a cool dude or a well-presented dude within this particular subcultural scene in this day and age? If I'm wearing Crocs and khaki pants, although that's kind of normcore, that comes in and out of fashion as well. But if I'm clearly misunderstanding what it is to be acceptably dressed within this particular scene, then that may cut me out of the dating pool within it. Can I speak in a lexicon in a way that fits with the people that I'm hanging out with? And if you develop a broad range of social groups that you can interact with, and that's what I recommend when I'm teaching guys about lifestyle design, is that they go through an initial period of testing, targeting, and experimentation, which means getting out there and getting involved in as many different social scenes as they can, preferably ones that have women within them. So whether that means going to a public speaking class, an improv class, a dance class, volunteering at an event, going to an expat meetup or whatever it is, the more of those that you can interface with, this is building your social chops in general. This is allowing you to learn how to communicate with people of different cultures, of different subgroups, of different ages, of different interests, so that you then become a much more well-rounded man and well-versed at the different communication styles which you need to be competent at, which then broadly expands the different types of women that you could bring into your life. The final pillar of this strategy is to develop the cold approach seduction skills. So many men have attempted to get good with women or get women into their life and avoid this aspect of it, which is kind of ironic because it is the meat and potatoes. It is where most of the grunt work happens. I've seen countless clients who've actually put a whole lot of effort into lifestyle design, and they have built really cool social circles, or they're involved in interesting and fun activities. And there are women within those, there are options within them, and then they don't know what to do. They don't know how to bridge this gap from, okay, we're in a warm environment and we're social and maybe I'm friendly with this person, to actually asking her out on a date and then understanding the processes of escalation and seduction, so it can go from someone I know within my social scene to someone that I'm dating. And although these days it can often be more taboo to have the idea of going and meeting a stranger in the street than it is to meet them online, which when I was growing up was completely flipped. It was the weirdos and the goths and the strange, awkward nerds who met on the early dating sites, and everyone else met by going out to a party or going to a bar or pub and rolling over and going, oh, how's your night going? And ending up in some kind of chat. These days, the idea of a man just rolling up totally cold is taboo, and it's something that's not as generally accepted as perhaps it once was. But the advantage to this is that so few men are actually doing it, and it still works. Statistically, women state that they would much rather meet their significant partner not at a bar or even necessarily through friends, and definitely not online. Like, that's not part of her romantic fantasy. No woman's lying awake at night thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if Prince Charming came on this app? No, her fantasies and the ways that she's going to be most stimulated by a man is still in relation to the fact that a guy had the audacity and the courage to come over and talk to her, that he picked her out of the potential options that he had, that there was a spark, a synchronicity, something that was unpredictable, something romantic, right, that they then met in real life, and that's where sparks flew. That's still the ideal way that a woman is going to want to meet her guy. And because so few men are doing it, then there are broad scope, large demographics of women who may only have a couple of options. As I said earlier, yeah, attractive, sociable women will have options in their life. They're always going to, unless they've got social anxiety or they've just arrived in a city or something like that. Yeah, they're going to have options. But how many? If a woman only has 2, 3 guys in her social world where she's like, yeah, he'd be all right as a partner, or maybe I'm flirting with him or whatever, but then another guy comes in completely out of left field, supersedes all of the social environment, ladder climbing and strategy and time spent the guy's done by meeting this girl through the social circle, and just rolls up and projects his clear masculine intent, has a flirt with her, charms her, asks her out, and she finds herself speeding through her usual dating process of getting to know a guy over time in a social circle and maybe hooking up on a drunken night out or something like that, to this man who has made a beeline for her and in a gentlemanly way moved extremely fast, really, in the timescale of things, having a 10, 20-minute discussion with her on the street, asking her out, going out for a drink that night or the next night, having a make-out, having one more date where she comes straight over on the Friday and they hook up. Suddenly this guy has blown the other prospects out of the water, because those guys who are only within her social orbit are moving too slowly, or none of the real excitement exists anymore because she already knows this guy, because she hasn't seen him move with masculine sexual purpose towards her, so that the guy that comes in and just does that from the get-go can very quickly supersede all the other options. Going through this process of learning the skills to meet strangers and turn them into lovers is something that can be learnt in a fairly short, quite intense, and sometimes difficult period. It requires a man to either have been social throughout his life, to be one of the lucky cool dudes who was just part of the cool mixed gender groups and went to parties and figured it out when he was a teenager, and now he knows how to mac on women. Most of us weren't in that situation, even if we were trying. Instead, for a lot of guys, if you are going to make an active choice in your dating life as opposed to the passive one, the passive choice, which still is a choice, is to sit there and wait and hope and more or less do nothing and waste hours on dating apps. You've already experimented with that and you know what the results are for you. If you're crushing it doing that, cool, but most guys are not. So you've made that passive choice in the past. Well, your choices now are to sit in that indefinitely or get bitter and angry and think about the why indefinitely. Okay, why is it like this? It's because society has collapsed and women have gone to hell in a handbasket and it's not fair and only the rich chads get the girls and whatever. We can sit within that victim mentality and we can find all sorts of information that will prove that, because it's provable to some degree. But it's not a complete monopoly. It's not like only 1 or 5% of the men get all of the attractive women in the world. No, they are distributed throughout the world. There are certainly men who do every day, because I teach them and I interact with them a lot, decide to just break through the preordained matrix and the social groupings and the hierarchies that do exist out there and just turn up and go, hey, I'm here, I'm having a shot, and that it can absolutely work. And it will work with enough time put into it, enough skill developed, enough confidence developed, and enough commitment to the process, which involves somewhere around 3 to 6 months-ish of dedicated putting your time and emphasis into learning this skill set. And then once you reach a point of competency with it, you will then be able to find partners or a girlfriend or multiple girlfriends, and then you have that skill set for life, because you're going to need it. There are going to be multiple times in your life where you're a single man, or you're back out in the dating market, and possibly a lot has changed in your life since you were last out. Maybe you were sociable in college, you dated a girl for 4 years, and then when you break up, you find yourself without the parties and the crew that you used to have, and you're really landing cold and trying to figure it out from scratch. If you have the ability and the confidence to do cold approach seduction, which means rolling up to strangers in various locations, then you'll be able to get things happening. And it doesn't all have to be done cold on the streets, although that's the fastest and most effective way to get your chops up. But if you've been doing this investment spread, 5% into your online game, your social time you're using effectively, so you're putting good amounts of hours every week into fostering social circles where there are mixed genders, where you're out in events or locations where there is access to women, and then you're spending a good amount of time going out and pinpointing certain women that you like the look of and trying to get them into your life, and then you can blend that together where you can draw a good prospect into your social circle. You can invite her to the climbing afternoon or to the picnic or to the hike or whatever it is that you guys are having, and then the things of status and social capital and the way she perceives you around other people and the lifestyle that you lead, which doesn't, again, need to be glamorous and full of private jets and Maseratis. It's just that you got your own place, you got friends that are fun to hang around with, there's something going on in your life, therefore she wants to be part of it. That will be more than enough. So if you have that general spread of effort, and you look at this as a long-term thing, that it's over the next, like, how many years are you going to be actively single / going in and out of relationships before you perhaps settle down with one person for a long period or the long period of time? Cool. You're 26 now, or you're 32 now, whatever. You can see that there's a number of years ahead of you where this is realistic, where it's something that is important to you, that you want to make sure that you're enjoying your younger years as well as preparing for your retirement, preparing to build your wealth or build your status or build your expertise. Okay, some of these things may take a decade to reach fruition, but we don't want to be out of the sexual market until such a point as we think that we're going to be perceived as valuable. Any given woman in front of you can perceive you as being valuable. Any given approach, any given 10 or 30 seconds of extreme bravery where you're breaking out of the preordained rat maze that you inhabit and move through every single day, and everyone else in their own little rat mazes, and you just break out of that invisible and permeable barrier and walk over and say, hey lady, within 5 or 10 minutes you could have a date with an amazing woman that you would never meet online and that you would never meet by spending the next 10 years trying to build your social collateral. So in conclusion, yes, it is rough out there. The times, they have a change. The dating world is much more brutal and isolated and disconnected for lots of people than it used to be. For others, it's just the same, or it's even better for some groups. And the important thing is to note, okay, where do you fit if you have been slid out of the game? If you find yourself in a situation where you are of this, whatever, 50% of dudes who are single and not working on this and not having any prospects, then you have to be realistic and harsh on yourself and understand. Is there any point in blaming it on external factors? I mean, sure, do that for a day or a week or something to just be annoyed at how unfair it is. But that's not going to change anything. No one is going to charity fuck you. No one is going to, no external source is going to change the way men and women date. There's way too many variable factors that are at play here in terms of corporations and technology and shift in demographics and isolation of people and access to shiny things online or unrealistic expectations. All that stuff exists and we can't change it as an individual. What we can do is acknowledge that it doesn't mean the game is over. It doesn't mean that women are all fucked or that there's no chance for a guy in this modern day and age. It just means that I'm going to have to be strategic about it and I'm going to have to accept that there's work involved. I'm going to have to accept that my current lifestyle and my access is not functioning. And so there are actions I'm going to have to take. They're not going to be magic pills that solve the problem necessarily overnight, although keep in mind, again, that any given interaction can lead to an amazing relationship or a hot hookup. You are actually only one approach away from your girlfriend. It just might not be the next approach. It might be the 100 from now. But overall, I think it's absolutely worth it because we are humans. It's really hard to live a fulfilling life if you don't have the intimacy and the closeness, the sex, the excitement, the bond that comes from romantic relationships. Most people just aren't going to survive very well without it. So if you want to survive and thrive, it needs to be a priority for you. Just as looking after your body and looking after your finances are, looking after your social and sexual retirement or your ongoing experiences is just as important. So if you'd like to rapidly accelerate this process, then I can help you. I've been doing this for over 15 years, teaching men from every demographic all around the world, plenty of guys who didn't have any options, how to bring essentially infinite options into their life. And that is through the process of learning natural style seduction. That's what I'm known for, that's what I do, and that's what works. Taking men out, showing them the skills of how to approach different conversational techniques, mindset shifts, reframing, use of body language, of style, all of the aspects that go into making your chances with a new prospect as good as possible. So coming up very soon, in middle of July, I'm going to be releasing the 5 Principles of Natural Seduction Brotherhood. So this is an online training program and a 6-month ongoing mentorship program with myself, where you'll get to interact with me through live lectures, through missions, through accountability and feedback, through daily chatting on our private Telegram group, and through the huge amount of material, dozens of hours of lectures where I break down in granular detail both the broad concepts, the deeper principle understandings, and the practical applications of natural type seduction so that you have effective tools and roadmaps to go out there and make it happen. And then you have the support of me and your brotherhood to come back to get feedback on your recorded approaches, to discuss any problems, and to work through the missions that are designed to, over a short amount of time, 6 months' time, build you from wherever you're at to a social circle and a seduction skill set that is delivering the returns that you really want. So stay tuned for that, coming out very soon, middle of next month. And I'm also giving away some spots on a free webinar coming up very soon where you can jump on and for free ask me any initial questions that you might have about seduction, lifestyle design, intergame sexuality, or any of the areas that I am known for. All you need to do is click the link in the description, sign up for that, and stay tuned for the launch coming out very soon. This has been James Marshall. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.